Hello, wonderful coaches. Welcome. I'm Suzanne Taylor King, and we are here for the August edition of Coach Conversations. And I am so thankful for this conversation tonight. It was sparked by many conversations with the wonderful Dr. Dorothy Martin-Neville and I about the energy behind how you show up. And within the past year or so, I've decided to show up a little bit differently, very intentional, very high vibe, and really create that space for myself. So I wanted to include her in this conversation because she's a mentor in showing up a little bit more powerfully. So, Dr. Dorothy, welcome.
Hi, thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, I just want to say a little bit about this fabulous woman. Um, Not only has she been a flight attendant and a nun all in the same lifetime, but she was a psychotherapist for 25 years. She started an energy medicine school for doctors and medical professionals, and now she's an incredible coach for executive women and my personal mentor. So I don't know what more I can say about somebody who's funny, warm, experienced, intuitive, and aware of energy. You don't get much better than this lady right here.
You bet. Hey, when you got it, you got it.
I know, right? So we're going to go around the room first and let our coaches just say 30 seconds about themselves, who they are as a coach, who their ideal client is, where they're from. And I want you each to pick one word to describe how you prefer to show up for your ideal clients or prospective clients. And I'm going to let Dr. Dorothy go first.
Oh, all right. All right. Well, you said what I do basically. I coach women in leadership. I mean, I have male clients as well, but as a psychologist, usually it was women that go into therapy. Men go to the gym, women go to therapy. And so most of my referrals tended to be women, so that became my coaching practice. But showing up to me, it's to be present. It's to put and meet them where they are, not where I know they're capable of where they are, so that I could bring them to that place. But that requires me to really live in a practice of mindfulness and emotional intelligence, because that allows me to truly be present whenever somebody shows up on my Zoom screen.
I love that. All right, Coach Chris.
You just love picking on me.
No, I love
Um,
you so much.
I love you too, Suzanne. Um, Coach Chris, Coach Chris Consulting. I am a sales and business coach. I work specifically within the HVAC, plumbing, electrical, home services type of industries. Those are my ideal clients, the ones that I work with. I wrote a book about 3 months ago called The Red Chair Experience, and that is speaking to a lot of what Dr. Dorothy was just talking about in the emotional intelligence, and it's a daily inspiration for success in life and business. And as a result, it's speaking to this emotional awareness, if you will, and how we can integrate that with the intellectual self. So, how do I show up? I, I'm there, just like Dorothy was talking about. I'm present for them, and uh, um, a friend called me a kindness commando, and I'm still trying to work on that and figure out how that all ties in. But um, I show up for people and I help them to really get from where they are to the next step and the next step and the next step, and I guide them along the path.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for being here, my friend.
Thank you.
Mr. Mike O'Neill, thanks for joining us.
Well, hey everybody. Um, I try to show up present. For me, I have to work at that because I have a tendency to be distracted. So I really have to be very, very intentional in that effort. But who am I showing up for? I ideally work with manufacturing leaders, helping them kind of execute their growth strategies. It may be their own professional growth or their organizational growth.
All right.
Wow.
Well, thanks for being here. Michael Pacheco, welcome.
Yeah, hey Suzanne, good to see you again.
You too.
Hi everyone, Michael Pacheco. I'm managing partner at Boxer Media and Growth Marketing. We're an agency that works with coaches and consultants to help you grow your authority and build a brand. And I show up for my clients with energy.
Love that. David Brooke, welcome.
Thank you, Suzanne Taylor King. David George Brooke, that gratitude guy, Seattle, Washington. I would say the average client I always get is from my speaking. I do a lot of speaking. And so people want to, I call myself that gratitude guy. Obviously, that's the subject. People that want to infuse their life with gratitude and have a coping mechanism that might work better than most of the other ones that they've tried, some that are destructive and deadly. So it gives them a nice alternative. And how I show up is a word that I get all the time. So it's not even from me originally, but everybody else says, you're so intense. I just can't get over how intense you are. And I go, well, do you want me to just be casual about like whatever? You want to like get your life on the right track? I mean, who cares? And so of course I'm intense, but that's the one I would say that labels me the most.
I love it. And I think that intensity is amazing. So
thank you.
You're welcome. Charlie, welcome.
David, your intensity with a smile.
Yeah.
There you go. You got a great smile, David.
Moldering intensity. Woo.
Yeah. You know
Thanks,
that there
Charlie.
there are 56 different life transitions that we all go through. I've gone through 26. That's all I want to go through. Well, there's one more I go through, but I won't be around for that. But my point is that we all navigate those transitions, and some do it well and some don't. And I'm there to try to help people go through those kinds of transition. The biggest question I'm hearing people say now is, what's next? It could be about what's next in terms of my practice, what's next in terms of my career, what's next in terms of my love life. I don't go there, but they sometimes wonder about that. So the way I show up is I'm very insightful. I go deep with people. I use a technology called human archaeology to try to help people understand themselves first before they try to convince other people to work with them or to introduce them to those that need them. Great to be here. This is a great group of people.
Well, great to have you. All right. So I think where we should go tonight is to have Dr. Dorothy explain what energy is and how we can capitalize on that, if you will, and what are the things that typically affect our energy. I know what mine are, but do you know what yours are, and how do you stay away from those things? So I'll let her have the floor, and then we'll get in conversation.
Well, just to address what you just said, the things that impact our energy are sadly most often not even recognized. So that when we show up with the patient or we show up with a friend even, we think we're being real when in fact we may be really suppressed. We may be trying so hard to be present, or we're trying so hard to be real. We're trying so hard that when we start trying hard, we lose it. The energy becomes one of force and it shrinks it. I mean, think about this. When you become intense, and I know you said that, David, but that word has so many different interpretations. When I think of intense, I think of that person that is so tight and so intense that literally on an energetic level, they impact circulation, they impact lung function, they impact organic and systemic function. And so what ends up happening is that you get their head, you don't get their heart, and you don't get their purpose. You simply get their head, because that's what they're focused on. And as a speaker and as a psychologist for 25 years, seeing 42 patients a week, what I can tell you is what impacts anybody we work with, whether it's a speaker's audience, whatever it is. It doesn't matter if we're talking engineering, auto mechanics, or we're talking personal growth. If we don't touch their heart, they don't get us. We're speaking to their brain, and their brain shuts down within 3 minutes. It keeps continuously shrinking. Some will tell you it's down to 52 seconds. That continuously, their ability to stay focused on you shrinks. When you touch their heart, they stay present with you because you've engaged them. And many of us are intellectually curious, but that only lasts a bit, because once somebody gives us a good idea, we take off and we extrapolate on it on our own. So we shut off the speaker and we've gone away, whether the speaker is your coach or somebody you're listening to at a conference. So, but when you touch their heart, because sadly that is so rare, you hook people right there. They want to be present with you. And so energetically, if you show up that I truly want to experience where they are, that means my energy is grounded, it's solid, and I'm present. But my purpose is to truly be present. Where are you? Because if a client shows up in a split second, I can tell you that their mask is on. They're trying to let me know that everything is great, when in fact it's not. Or they want to jump in and give me facts. And I know they're doing that because they don't want me to ask questions that aren't fact related, because that's where the real work needs to be done today. You know? And so when I am so grounded and so present in me because of mindfulness and emotional intelligence, and I know what my triggers are, and mindful enough to, so I'm still at a conversation at breakfast with somebody, or on the phone with a friend earlier, or a client earlier, and I can let that go and come back and be present with them. I'm ready to truly hear where they are and what's going on with them. And I show up, I'm intentional in that I show up in my power, because they need to feel safe with me. And what I see with so many of my clients, they don't know if they can be safe with me before they get to know me. Intellectually, they think they're my peer, and that's perfectly fine. But when it comes to supporting them, I need to get inside their heart and their soul. I need to be able to know truly what's going on with them. And that means knowing the stories they're telling themselves. And most of those stories they see as universal truths. You know, nobody knows the answers to this question, or nobody knows how to do this, or really, you know, we go back in our naivete, and most of their belief systems are based on a very limited exposure.
As true with most of us.
Most of us, the example I use, I grew up in an orphanage, but then I was later adopted, and I grew up in the housing projects in the inner city of South Boston. So in the inner city of South Boston, everybody, and I mean that literally, is Irish Catholic. So I grew up knowing everybody on this planet had tuna fish on Friday nights. There was no doubt in my mind, no matter what country we're talking about, they were all Irish, and they all had tuna fish on Friday nights. It wasn't till I was almost 18, no longer living at home, I became a Catholic nun of all things, and realized that not everybody in the world was Catholic, and not everybody in the world ate tuna fish on Friday nights. It was like, oh my God, what else do I know that's not true? What else do I know that isn't real?
Oh, love that question.
You know? And that truly has been a question I've had my entire life. What else do I know that isn't true? And so when I can show up with that and dealing with that energy, walking in with that curiosity and that energy with a client or an audience, if I'm speaking, whether it's 12 people or 1,000 people, what else do I not know? And what else do I believe is truth that isn't? It allows me to be completely undefended and to be absolutely present. And that energy says, I no longer have something to prove. It says, I no longer have to be in charge. I just have a wee bit left of the Boston accent, all right? But it also says that I can rely on my wisdom, not my knowledge. And obviously, I think knowledge is important. I wouldn't have spent, 20-something years in college getting all these doctoral degrees and all of these other degrees I possess. I believe in education, but wisdom is far more important. And because we're present, we don't have something to prove. We don't need to be combative. Although even on my website, my clients will say to me, you hold my hat while you kick my ass. And what they mean by that is they feel absolutely unjudged when they are with me. None of us are perfect. We're going to be growing until the day we go home. You know, we're all in process. So there isn't an ounce of judgment there. But simultaneously, when I hear them by the stories of how limited they are, or how incapable they are, how impossible this or that task is, and I'll say, so what other lies do you tell yourself to give you permission to fail? What other lies do you tell yourself so you don't have to reach? Well, shit, you're putting it out there, aren't you? Well, you're paying me big bucks, sweetheart. It's not so I can say you're a sweetie. It's so I can help you get to where it is you want to go. So let's look at what's really there. And when they feel completely unjudged, and that's an energy I walk in the room with, when they feel completely unjudged, they can open up and expose why they think making 150,000 is a lot, when in their heart they want 500,000 or 7 figures. And so when my people say to me, this is what I want to make, or this is what I want the size of my company to be, and I'll say, can you expand it? Well, yeah, I could go this high. And what if you go this big? Oh my God, I don't think I can do that. Why do you think? And there's no size to me that's the right size. But why do you think you can't go to this size? I don't have the skills, I don't have the power, I don't have the ability. If that's all you want, we can help you get that. If that's all you're lacking is skill and the power and ability, you can learn that. But that's my going in with an energy that says anything in life is possible. And I truly believe that who we are is what we give. Is the biggest gift we give to our clients. It's not what we know. And who we are truly all depends on how we look at the past of our own story. Because if you think about and every one of us has a story, you think of your story, how do you interpret it? Because if you interpret it as a gift, you recognize that everybody else out there is filled with gifts. Right? If you look at your story and say, nobody knows the troubles I've seen, you get so sucked into the troubles you've seen and what a survivor you are, that you start helping your clients become survivors. And what an absolute failure that is. When we teach anybody to survive, we have failed miserably. You know, to me, it's about teaching them to live. But that's the mindset we walk in. To me, that's the important thing for coach. That's the mindset we have to walk into the session with. Miracles happen every day. Life is never about surviving. It is about living passionately and fully. So that belief system governs me the moment I open up the Zoom link and let somebody in the room, that miracles happen every day. Nothing is impossible, and let's get going. And that's not an idea I have or a belief I have. It's a knowing I have based on my life story of coming from an orphanage, being raised in the projects, being a Catholic nun, being an international airline stewardess, being married and being divorced with 2 little babies that I then went back and go to master's, then go to PhD, then raised, and then founded 4 companies. You know, and I spent 10 years living in the Caribbean. And one day I was in Anguilla living and swimming in the water and thinking, do you realize you're a kid from an orphanage? You have 4 companies in America that your executive directors are leading. And you're here swimming in the Caribbean 2 hours a day. Holy Mother Mary, do we have a small miracle going on here? And when you can do that, you see that anything is possible. And when you truly believe it, not intellectually, but on a cellular level, energetically, it transforms you, and that brings you into your sessions in a dramatically different way. And it doesn't matter who your population is. It doesn't matter what your goal is. You know, some coaches teach business planning. Some coaches teach transition. Some coaches teach how to sell and retire. You know, that piece to me almost irrelevant. You're teaching what you know. But the biggest piece you're giving them is how to do that and be fully present and do it in coming alive. And like you, Charlie, I work with folks in transition a great deal. And to me, I will always say to them, do not survive this transition. This is a time when you learn to let go of the past. Not only think of where you want to go, but think of who you want to become. Because that is so much more important than what you're going to do. Because if you know who you want to become, what you're going to do becomes detail. You know, I think that's about enough of my talking. I'm a keynoter. I could speak for an hour.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Two questions, actually. The first one is the tuna fish dinners on Friday night.
Yeah, Spuckies, tuna Spuckies.
Okay, but those tables, over the table, there was a picture of John F. Kennedy, wasn't there?
Oh, God.
In
bless
every
him.
home?
Well, all of the Kennedys on St. Patty's Day, all the Kennedys rode in convertibles down Dorchester Street. Yeah,
Yeah.
they were it.
I want your opinion on something. David, the gratitude guy. What happens when people embrace gratitude in terms of how it changes them or helps them adjust or what happens when they embrace that, Dorothy, from a psychological point of view?
What happens is that energetically and psychologically, when they become grateful, they move away from the identification of victim. Too many folks identify with the victim. You know, I'm strong, I've suffered a great deal, and I've come through a great deal, but it's okay, I can do it. When they become grateful, there's a lightness, there's a freedom, there is a letting go of the burden of victimization, of the illusion of victimization. There's a letting go of the burden they carry, and they move into a much lighter energy, which makes them freer to evolve.
My last question, Dorothy, is when did you become aware that you were grateful?
I would say when I was 6.
There you go. Good.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So I think all of us have experiences of that. Sometimes we turn away from it, but if we really go back and look at the through lines of our life, we discover things like that.
Yeah.
That's why I'm doing it. Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. David?
Dorothy, quite an amazing story from an orphanage for all the things you said. And the way you ticked those things off, it was almost like a shopping list. Like, so what? I mean, it's a gallon of milk, a loaf of bread, a couple other things, get a couple eggs. And so I want to preface this question. I ask this question a lot when I meet people like you, which are extremely inspiring to me. And that is that I will preface it by saying that I had the pleasure or displeasure, whatever you want to call it, I added it up once, of managing 10 to 15,000 people in different stores. I managed with 400 or 500 people, 200 people at Lowe's and 500 people at Nordstrom. And I added it up once and I thought, gosh, I've managed a lot of people. I have been shocked my entire career how unmotivated so many people are. And this is one of the reasons when I get on these mastermind and these networking groups, I think, thank goodness, like-minded people, like I found my tribe. I don't care for that word as much. But so with that being said, where did your motivation come from? Because you've accomplished a ton. And I always felt for every Dorothy I found, I'd find about 25 or 30 people that had just not much to bring to the table. Just my experience and all across all socioeconomic and economic and so forth. So where did it come? What was the genesis of it? What was at the bottom of all of this that kept driving you to accomplish as much as you've accomplished?
I would say there's two things. I would say one, I think I came in with the gift of faith and humor. All right. A lot I didn't go into, and my story is not really relevant, but when I left the orphanage, my birth mother's third husband found out she had a child in an orphanage, and Southie is a very more Irish than the people in the old country. Okay, there's this illusion of they all wish they were us. And I said to my father once, Daddy, why would those farmers want to live in the projects? And he had a few swear words to say about that. It was a stupid question. But there was this whole piece that he found out there was an Irish child in an orphanage, and Irish children don't belong in orphanages. So my dad adopted me and brought me back to the house. And when he did, my mother and my grandmother would not let me in the house because no good Catholic home had illegitimate children in it. So what my father would do is get me up at 5:30 in the morning, put me in a sunsuit or a snowsuit. I was adopted at 3. He adopted me, they didn't. Put me in a snowsuit or a sunsuit, depending on the season. Put me outside in a playpen by the stoop. All projects have like these stoops outside the front. And he would put me outside the stoop and leave me there to 9:30 at night when everybody went to bed. Then he would come out and get me, bring me in and give me dinner, put me to bed and get me out again at 5:30 in the morning because my mother and grandmother who lived in the home did not want an illegitimate child in that house. So my grandmother never saw an illegitimate child. So when I was 6, she fell down and broke her hip. I moved into the house at that point in time because my father was although he had great deal Irish pride, he was the typical Irish disease. He was an alcoholic policeman with a gun. So my mother was terrified of him, and he was a sadist. So once I moved in that house at 6, not understanding the terminology, but I can phrase it differently at this point. Every one of them were destroyed. All my brothers and sisters and my mother were destroyed emotionally and spiritually. They were part of the Walking Dead. I recognized the gift I had of living on the streets for 3 years was I was not in that context. So when I moved in there at 6 and I saw what he was doing to all of my brothers and sisters, I took him on. So this little 6-year-old was taking on this guy who had been a semi-pro football player and was now a cop. I would take him on to protect my mother and brothers and sisters, to keep them alive and to keep them sane. So what I knew at that point in time, that the gift of my living on the street all those years, was that he didn't get to break me. And he would say, I'm going to break you the way they break horses. And I would say, no, you're not. And so this sweet little 6-year-old child was grateful that she had lived outside, grateful I wasn't in the orphanage anymore, but also aware that I had a strength the others didn't have because I wasn't exposed to what they were exposed to from the moment of my birth. So there was a gratitude there as well. So I went through the rest of my journey till I was 17 and left the house, aware that I had a life force nobody else in that house had. And because I was the most powerful in that house, I could take on my dad when nobody else could. So it really became a gift of the ability to stay alive, the ability to stay whole, and have friends that I could connect to out there. And I was blessed. There was always somebody out there who saw me. There was always some adult somewhere who saw me. I remember in the 6th grade, when I was always in the public school until the 6th grade, when I hit puberty, my parents sent me to the nuns so I didn't get pregnant or sent up, because most of my girlfriends were either becoming hookers because it was good money, or they got pregnant or got sent to reform school. My parents sent me to the nuns. God bless them. They didn't realize every parent who had a wild child sent them all to the nuns in the 6th grade. They should have kept me in the public school. I would have been with all the good kids. Instead, I was with all the wild kids that were sent to the nuns. So it was the whole thing backfired on them. But I spent most of the next 5 years in detention, but that was another story. I was never guilty. It was just talking, just talking and passing notes. But I think that humor and the realization that I had been blessed by not being a part of the system I was raised in just did it. And there was something in me that I think I was born with, just determined, that when I graduated in the senior year of high school, you graduate in May, you get married in June. And then you move into the tenements if you get rich, or you stay in the projects. And you have 10, 20 children, and that's what you do. And I was engaged to Michael Dana Flaherty, because you marry your own kind. And so I was going to do that. But then I also wanted to go to college, but I couldn't. So I said, never mind, I'll go to nursing school. I'll get a job and go to nursing school, even though I'm married to Michael, and found out I went to an unaccredited inner city high school. So no nursing school in the United States could accept me. And I realized, because I really wanted to become a social worker, and I didn't know this, but nuns did social work. So I said, I'm going to become a nun and I'll be a social worker. Because I didn't know social workers went to college. I'd never met one. And I'd never known a girl who had been to college. So, I mean, when you look at outside, I said, every one of us has a story. So when you look at your story, what are the strengths you developed in the story? What are you born with? What are the gifts you brought in? What's the faith system you brought? What is the resiliency you brought in? Those are our innate gifts. The stuff we've learned is wonderful, but those gifts we brought in are the innate gift we bring to our clients. I truly believe that. And when you own it, you live it every day of your life. So every day I just think miracles happen every day. I don't practice religion at all. I haven't for 30 years, but every day I'll just say, thank you, Jesus. Another miracle took place, when something that wasn't supposed to happen did, or, or some client decides to cancel. And I think, okay, there's a reason they canceled. I hope I gave them everything they needed, but I wonder what's coming in. Versus, oh my God, I'm never going to pay my mortgage. I'll never pay my rent. I'm going to lose my car. I'm going to die of starvation. I really don't think so. But that immediate jerk reaction to fear can pop up if you don't take a moment and say, I think you're a little bit away from starvation and living on the street. So let's take a deep breath on that one,
Well, I think that is my question for you. When we do forget who we are, or that energy, or that wisdom, and how can we snap out of that quicker? I have some things I do, but sometimes it doesn't happen. I don't remember quick enough.
Do a reality check. And I think reality checks, that's what I teach all my people to do. Do a reality check. When somebody will say to me, and I truly had this client, she created an entire medical program. She was an orthopedic surgeon, entire medical program from Mayo. She had brought up here to create the same thing for Yale. And she said to me, I can't do a damn thing right. I said, I agree with you. It was pure luck that made you an orthopedic surgeon. Pure luck that had you define how to create a program and have Mayo exalt you at all these conferences. Pure luck that Yale called you up to come and do it. What the fuck are you talking about? I said, well, you awake yet? Well, okay, then we're ready to go. Boy, you do kick my ass, don't you? You bet your butt I do. Welcome back. Now let's get going where we are. So it's like, do a reality check. Because when we go to those places where I don't know anything, or I'm dumb, or I'm on my way to a homeless shelter, take a moment. Take a moment, a reality check. List the successes you've had. List the things you've done that are amazing. Because every one of us has a dozen, if not 40 dozen. But list a dozen.
Let's pick our top accomplishment.
You pick it and you say, okay, all right, I got this.
Yeah.
I got this. The reality checks are amazing, because when we go into the limit thinking, that's not based on reality, that's based on fear.
Mm-hmm.
So the best way out of fear is to come back to reality.
All right, well, let's who wants to share their biggest accomplishment? Doesn't have to be in the last year. It could be any time in your life. What's the thing?
Business or professional or personal?
I don't care.
Either one.
Either one.
I played college football. I walked on and played college football. That was one of my biggest personal accomplishments.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Oh.
Michael, you're shaking your head. No accomplishments?
I've got accomplishments.
Yeah, you don't.
Gosh, I just the problem is that there's just so many. I don't know which one to pick.
Oh, it's hard to be great.
In the past, let's see, in the past 3 years, I got married to my best friend. We bought our dream property in the Washington State Cascade Mountains, built a house, and had a baby.
Congratulations.
Started a family.
What a full 3 years that was.
It's COVID. COVID has treated me well. COVID times has treated me well, I should say, not COVID itself.
I'm really glad for you.
Michael, where are you in Washington State?
Down Washougal.
Oh, wow.
Southwest. Yeah.
I'm just up in Renton, not far, just up I-5 or I-9,
Yep.
I-5, I should say. Yeah. I didn't know you're from the same state. Great.
Yep. I'm Oregon born and raised, but been in Washington for a number of years now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. How about you, David?
Well, I actually glanced over to the bulletin board because when I do not so much in a keynote, I get people started on this exercise, but it has to do with focusing on what you're grateful for. And I use it in the workshop as well. And I give them about 30 or about 60 to 70 seconds to write down as many of the most memorable events of their life that they can. in 60 seconds. The most memorable events, personal, professional, doesn't matter. Travel, kids, work, you name it, anything. And then I tell them, I'm going to give you an assignment for a week later that you can convert it to one of three things: a top 25 list, a top 50 list, or a top 100 list. And so I did mine, and it's 100 lists, and it says the top 100 most memorable life events. And it says, what did it say, March of 2022, because I updated it. And the whole key with this is when you're and for me, number one thing most memorable is my youngest son, and number two is my older son. And number three is surviving a horrible situation I went through with my younger son just a year and a half ago, which we thought he got in some real trouble with some cryptocurrency and stuff, and it looked like there might be some big penalties and stuff, and just surviving that is now number three. But there's other things, and learning how to fly and buying an airplane and all this stuff. But I tell people, I said, put that in the top 50, top 25, top 100, put it in priority order of the most memorable, impactful events of your life, and then go all the way down to 100. And the whole key behind that exercise, which I like to think I practice what I preach, is you look at that list on a bad day, your bad day will turn into a good day. When you go, I cannot believe how much I accomplished. Oh my goodness, at 72 years old. I've been on the planet 7 decades plus 2 years. And it just makes you feel better. And the whole thing that I do with a lot of my exercises, I call my gratitude talk, maximizing your gratitude attitude, is all sorts of experiential exercises, interactive exercises, partnering up, all within just 60 minutes. And they're all designed to give you about 6 or 7 little exercises you can take with you, so you don't think, gosh, what a great speaker, but then the next day you can't remember a thing they said.
Right.
But it left an impact. And so with these little cards and these different things are just all designed to give us different tricks to get back to focusing on what you have versus what you don't have. Because when Charlie, you were asking Dorothy about gratitude, and one of my main sayings is gratitude turns what you have into enough. And this constant chasing everybody else, and he's got a better car, better house, better wife, better job, more money, this, that, it's just insane. It's a cat chasing its tail. And if you just focus on what you have, and then you do a list like that, it's amazing how much that'll bring me back centered when I get off on the wrong track.
Right.
I love that. I love that, David. And I'll never forget the first time that I took the yoke and flew that little Cessna for the first time.
Yeah,
I will never forget that. Yeah.
exactly. That's fantastic.
I love that. Anybody else want to share?
I'm happy to. Last November, I could not run a mile. This November, I will hopefully have completed my second marathon.
Wow.
Wow. Congratulations.
So,
It's
Good for you, man.
thank you.
Wow.
So
That's cool. That's cool. How long did you feel that you couldn't do it?
you sometimes early on you kind of say, I think I'd like to run a marathon, and that was 25 years ago, and it just never got done. And I decided to do that.
So what happened in your life that triggered it?
I wanted to be in control of something, and that's the thing I could control.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've learned about marathon running, I'm slow. It just takes time. You just got to give it the time.
But you finished. That's the important thing.
Finish it. And as Chris knows, my goal really was not just run a marathon. My goal was to run the New York Marathon, which is very, very hard to get into. I didn't qualify by time. I qualified by the lottery. So I get a chance to run the New York Marathon in November.
Good for you.
And I'm going to be a tourist in running shoes.
There we go. Cool. That's great.
I've done marathons, but walking. And even walking a marathon, but the last 3 miles, it's like you're walking on jello. The legs aren't, it's like, will they hold me up for the last 3 miles? There's nothing left. So running it, God bless. Holy mother, there's not a chance.
Mike, how long did it take you from when you made the decision to when you actually ran the 26 miles? How many months was that?
I'm going to direct this in part to Michael. We have 3 sons. One of my sons is kind of an uber athlete. He doesn't do things small. he ran a 100-mile mountain race.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
And it just inspired me. And I also realized that if I'm going to have something in common with our middle son, I've got to start running. Not that we had a close relationship, but this has brought us together. So what really prompted that was it gives me an excuse to reach out to him and ask running related questions. And then that lends itself to other things. So what triggered that was his goal, his determination, his success in doing those things inspired me.
What a great dad.
Nice.
Wow,
That's
that's
wonderful.
awesome.
What an amazing dad. Yeah.
Cool. So the original question was what, Suzanne?
Was something that you're proud of, greatest accomplishment, personal or professional.
So like Dorothy, I grew up in an Irish Catholic family. I was told to hate blacks, hate Jews, and get drunk by 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a decision early in life that I was going to stop the insanity and not allow it to destroy whatever family I had. So, I got the gene. I can go on, I can fall under a table pretty quick, but it's a lot of discipline until you realize that that's going to hold you back from being valuable to other people and contributing. Yeah, there are plenty of Irish authors that wrote great books when they were drunk, but it's about living your life. And so to me, when I look back on my life, that I'm very proud that I was able to do that. So my children did not see that behavior, of my mother would, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, she was shot. She would throw all this plates up against the wall and break them if my dad called and said he was going to be late, and we'd run and hide. I don't want, that scarred me big time. It took me a long time to do that. So, later on in life, I'm 75 now. So it took me a long time to find myself through that. So I'm quite proud of that. And I don't want, the reason I do what I do is to make sure nobody else suffers through not just that experience, but whatever is bothering them. I'm not a psychologist like Dorothy, but I think I'm somewhat sophisticated and can help people avoid those kind of things. Memorable will be what I just did 3 weeks ago. Little background: 30 years ago, I went through a divorce, got remarried, and I decided to take my 10-year-old son away for a week to go camping, just be together, quality time. And we went to a place in Vermont where I had been 20 years earlier as a camp counselor. So it was very dear to me. And there was this top of this mountain. It's like 4,000 feet high. It's not very big, but that's where I discovered God. That's where I realized the presence. I never felt it when I was going to Catholic school, but I felt it there for some reason. Anyway, so I took him and we went up this mountain. Now, I was a little older then, and it was kind of tough. And I made a pledge that I was going to do it again. And I was going to do it with him and his son, who was 6 years old. We did it. We got there. And I was worried that, this old codger, I'm in okay shape, but I really doubted I could do it. But when you make a commitment to somebody, you force yourself to do it. And I did it. And I felt incredible peace at having done this. And my son said something to me the other day, and he says, Dad, he wants to do it again. So, you plant this memory that Dorothy was talking about energy, that's creating a different kind of energy for him moving forward, because he'll remember his old grandfather doing that. So it's motivational. So that's something that, just hit me between the eyes when it was all said and done. I just felt very, very peaceful about the whole thing. So
what was the mountain, Charlie?
It's called Moose Lamoo. It's in Vermont. It's nothing big, but there's a route to the top that gives you a scenic view. You can see like 60 miles into New York State, that type of thing. So it was nice. It was nothing. My daughter's out in Colorado going up big mountains, and I'm jealous. But it's just, making a commitment and living up to it and getting the satisfaction from it. Similar to what Mike was saying, same type of thing.
If it's what does it, it's perfect. I taught my kids how to ski on Magic Mountain up in Londonderry.
There you go.
So small mountain, but whenever you can do something and you do it, that's the thing is you had a goal and you reached it. It doesn't matter what the goal is. You know, you have a goal and you reached it. Because it takes more than just doing it. It takes all the inner stuff, that inner transformational process to get you to achieve that goal because of all the messages that let you know you can't.
Correct. And those messages were there,
Right.
If we hadn't gone through COVID, I wouldn't have lost 25 or 30 pounds. I wouldn't have exercised the way I did every day. So I was in better shape. And had I not, if we hadn't gone through COVID, I may not have been able to do what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So
And I gotta do it again.
I'm sure next summer I'll get asked to do it again. You're right.
I
Yeah.
love that. So what we're saying, I think, just to summarize energy, once we decide and we make a commitment or we pick a goal and we achieve that goal, we're building up kind of those energy points, those basically proof of concept, right? We're proving the fact that we can do what we set out to do, that we can show up powerfully when we choose to, when we decide.
You also learn all the stories you tell yourselves about how you can't. So whenever you set a goal, every story in you that you may not be identifying, every story in you about how limited you are shows up. That takes too much time. That takes knowledge I don't have. That takes money than I've got. That takes more support than I've got. It takes more employees than I have. Whatever the story is, they start showing up when you're going after a goal.
Absolutely.
And it's really great because you get to see the lies you tell yourself and the lies that have limited you in the past. Because once you can identify those lies and you can confront them, they don't have the same power next time they show up because you've proven them wrong, and so you begin to take the power away from the stories and take it back, and it makes it much easier next time to achieve that next goal because you don't have as much garbage to work through to get there.
So that's the remembering piece then. I have a win journal, and I keep moments of intuition or insight when I was going to make a decision and I, decided one thing or another. And by keeping track of when I was right, when I was on target, when I made the right choice, when I had the right goal, and keeping track of those things has kind of like David said about his list of 100 accomplishments. It's kind of like that, like looking back at that, I have proof that I make good decisions and I make good choices and I do show up powerfully when I decide to. And that fuels me moving forward.
Yeah.
But I
Because
have to remember to do that.
that's the reality check, though. That's the reality check I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
The reality check, because it puts the stories in its place. And you've got it, What I would like to talk about for a moment is the exercise I do, David, when I work with people, is I have them get out an 11x8 piece of paper and draw a line down the middle. And on the first half, I have them write down every single illness or disease and disorder they have had in their life, from conception as far back as they can remember until the present day. And for some, it's 12, for some, it's 2 pages. And then on the right side of the page, I have them write down what was going on in your life when each one of those things happened. And when they do that, they begin to see that how you interpret everything in your life impacts your health, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And so I work with leaders, and unfortunately, many of the men usually come in after prostate cancer or after heart issues, or heart attacks or heart disease. But if you can prevent it, take a look that there's 5 personality constructs that I've created for leaders, 5 leadership styles, and each one holds their energy differently. So each one is predisposed to different diseases. And if you can understand how you do leadership, you can understand how you hold your stress and the diseases you're setting yourself up for. And so it really means letting go of the stories you tell yourself about leadership so you can let go of the diseases before they start.
Could you share one of those with us, Dorothy? Take one of the 5 and share it with us.
Sure. One of the most common ones, and you can, afterwards I can send it to all of you free of charge. I'm more than willing to send you my ebook. That's not a problem at all if you want it. But one of them, the visionary leader, well, you have the creative leader, that one that's got so many brilliant ideas and ways you can use things, where you have a product, they can think of 14 different ways of using it. It just comes naturally to them. That's a gift, the creative leader. Then you have the team leader, that person knows how to bring everybody together so they're connected. You have the supportive leader, who is frequently judged in the corporate world, who never wants to be CEO or COO. What he or she wants to be is the person behind the CEO or the COO, that they're the one that makes them look great. They're the ones that makes it happen. Then you have the CEO type, the person that may not have a creative thought in their mind, but you tell them the purpose, the mission, and the objective of the company, and they have the charisma and the style to bring that out to the world and really sell your company. Then you have the organizational leader. The organizational leader is the one, you can sit them in a room all by themselves. They love it when you create something because they get to create procedures, protocols. And when they can create procedures and protocols, they can create all of this. Those are the academics, they're the architects, they love it. All right. What ends up happening, they're the ones, I think I was speaking with David about, they're the ones that organizational leader, they have the right and the wrong way to do everything. Okay, because there's the right way and the wrong way. The visionary leader, it's my way or the wrong way. Organizational leader, it's the right way and the wrong way, because the whole world knows this is the right way and this is the wrong way. All right. And so what ends up happening is they become very rigid. The world becomes very black and white. And what ends up happening is that literally they become very tight in their body. And what ends up happening is literally the simplest disease or disorder they get is constipation, because there's so little circulation taking place. They hold their body so tight, and it's better to be perfect than to be. So for them, it's best to be perfect more so than to be real. And so that strict rigidity that they have for themselves, they impose on everybody in their life, and they impose on their business. And so their disease and disorders are going to be very pulmonary, because if you watch them, their lungs don't even expand when they breathe. They don't take in air. They're just perfect. They are the generals. They are the folks that just don't have it. They're there. You've got the visionary leaders. Those are the CEOs that get out there and make it happen. And everybody thinks, and we've raised to believe that that's what a real leader looks like, is the visionary leader, the man who takes charge, the man who makes it happen, the man who has all the answers, who knows everything, and he's out there. And what happens, unfortunately, for that individual is they suffer from that imposter syndrome. How can I be CEO and not have all the answers? I'm supposed to have all the answers if I'm CEO. Nobody has all the answers. I don't care who you are. But they have that demand on themselves. So the pressures that build on them, because they're supposed to be in charge of everything, they're supposed to know everything. They have a belief system that either I control or I get controlled. So everything in life is about being in control or being controlled. And so everybody they meet either wants to control them or they are going to control. And what ends up for those folks is that the frame, each of these has a particular body style as well. They tend to have broader shoulders. Women have bigger breasts, but they have broader shoulders, and then they have a thinner waist and thin legs. And because it's almost like I'm going to huff and puff and blow your house down, that energy they have is don't piss me off, because somehow I'm going to be intimidating if you do. And so all of this need for control builds up, and it develops heart disorders. And they have tendencies for more strokes, heart disease, or heart attacks. And those are very different causes. Heart disease is more long-term issues around an inability to be in intimacy and in relationship. And I don't mean sexual intimacy, I mean emotional and spiritual intimacy in a relationship. That creates more heart disease. Heart attacks are when it's much more a traumatic relationship trauma that takes place, heart attacks tend to come about. And for some, that's being forced out of a job. They love their job, they're forced out of it, and they have a heart attack. For some, it's they lose a partner, they lose a spouse, they lose a child. You know, something happens and there's a heart attack that takes place. So with each one of these, there are different types of ways of holding stress. And it impacts you and you develop diseases accordingly. You know, we're told that everything is genetic in disease. And yet if you've got two parents that are diabetic and they have 5 children, all 5 kids should be diabetic. Yet we know statistically that 2 or 3 out of those 5 are going to be diabetic. And if you go and you check the homes of the kids who are diabetic, they have the same political belief systems as the parents, the same spiritual belief systems as the parents. They eat the way the parents do. They even decorate the way the parents did. Look at the kids who don't have that. They have a completely different approach to life. They have a completely different approach to relationships. They eat differently. They exercise. They have a different lifestyle. And so if it's only genetics, they don't have the ability to control that. So we can look and see a personality, an energetic pattern. That where do you hold it? Because some of us, when we get high stress, we get strep throat. Others get high stress and they get migraines. Others get high stress, they get diverticulitis. Again, what's your personality style? That's where you're going to hold your stress, and that's where the disorders and the diseases develop. You know, so it's really, this is all energetics. Because stress is all energetic. Think about something that 20 years ago would have sent you off in a rage or major depression. Now it's, you know, because energetically it doesn't impact you the same way because you've got a lot more wisdom. So you don't go into defense, you just let it go. You know, somebody didn't like me. Oh, well, their loss. Move on. You know, versus, oh my God, my life is over. Somebody didn't like me. What did I do that was wrong? How can I make them like me? You know, all energetics, it governs our lives.
We're getting close to our 8 o'clock. Any questions for Dorothy? Any insights, takeaways?
I had a quick question. I'm all about the psychology of selling and that kind of stuff. And Dorothy, you said, and I'm curious about this if it was just off the cuff or if this is actually there's studies to back this up. You said you got 3 minutes to connect with people. I know there's studies that talk about making an impression and all that kind of stuff, and it's a whole lot less time. But you said you have 3 minutes to connect with them, and connecting with their heart, engaging their heart, you'll keep them. If you connect with them in the 3 minutes, you'll be able to keep them, you know, and continue to engage with them, obviously. But is there scientific studies behind that? I mean, that show you've got basically this short amount of time, and if you don't connect with them, you've lost them, or can you ever connect with them again?
And connect to them again, but it's much harder because they're coming at you the second time with a skepticism or a defense that wasn't up when they first met you. So the second time around, you have to work through those defenses or those belief systems that have you as somebody that it either isn't safe or isn't credible, whatever the case may be.
Right.
What you can read, and everything is on stats. I can tell you with a dissertation, you spend your life doing stats. And half of them are useless. But, you know, we now have things where people in 32 seconds, you know, how do you know 32 seconds? But in 32 seconds, you turn them off. And my experience is that within of 30, 40 seconds, they have a sense of who you are. And the thing is, much of that may be projected. You remind them of a coach they had in high school and they hated that coach. So all of a sudden they know all about you. You're just like that coach.
Right.
Right. So they're gone. So how do you overcome that? That's where when you touch their heart, when you relate something human to human, person to person, then all of a sudden they see you. And it's not telling a story. I don't want to tell my story. It's like, oh, then they half of them walk away, the poor little victim. And it's like, oh, get over your damn self. There's no victim here. You know, so it's more of just humor. You know, it can be something, you know, whatever it is that they say a human being in front of them. And now they feel safe with you. So it's because you made them safe. And sadly, most people don't feel safe. Because you made them feel safe, they can be with you. and you've got them. And then the rest is they will, as they get to experience you, because they're safe with you, they weren't safe with their coach in high school. Now that they're safe with you, they will begin to let you in, and you've worked through all that other stuff that could have gotten in the way.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Right.
Yeah. I love that. I love the safety factor. I think one of the things that stands out to me with that is the healthcare background that I have, that you have, and how that shifts your perspective in how you treat people.
Right.
And I would encourage any of you to pick up Dr. Dorothy, if you'd leave your LinkedIn in the chat and for everybody to connect with you. Dorothy has written how many books?
8.
Eight books. And the last one that I read was phenomenal, about connecting to your body. And thank you for everything that you do. Thanks for being here tonight. And thank you to all of my coaches who came for this conversation about energy. And we'll see you next month. And Michael's going to talk to us next month about, I don't know, to be announced, I guess, right? Michael has 2 podcasts with the Boxer Agency. Check them out. And we're going to go deep next month and talk with Michael.
We'll be talking about social omnipresence.
Oh, I love that. Very
Yeah.
good.
Powerful.
Surround sound marketing for coaches.
Surround
How you
sound
guys can do it yourselves.
marketing.
You don't have to hire me for it.
Woohoo!
Oh, I want to be here.
All right. Same link, 3rd Wednesday of the month, 7 p.m. Thank you guys. I'm going to hit stop record.